Dr. Heleni, with the renewed rapprochement between Beijing and Pyongyang, what are the potential implications for Western security, given, of course, North Korea's history of arms proliferation to Middle Eastern actors?
Exactly. These concerns are very much historical, not only hypothetical, as many people would like to assume at sometimes. In fact, North Korea has a history of supporting some Middle East actors, speaking here about Iran, Syria under the Assad regime, with some advanced technology when it comes to nuclear power, for example, for military purposes. For the United States, with its influence in the Middle East, this is very much a huge concern given the United States pressure on Tehran, of course, for counter proliferation efforts. And it's concerned that Iran can or could at some time in the future possess some nuclear power, not for civilian purposes, of course, but for military purposes. This will be a huge concern for the United States. And with the rapprochement you referred to between Pyongyang and Beijing, of course, this is helping North Korea not only with its advancement in technology, but also it's giving it a kind of an economic depth. So this will help North Korea in a way maneuver its way in the Middle East and provide not only a counter weight to the United States influence, but in my opinion, a very much a threat to the alliances which Washington has formed for a long time in the Middle East. Of course, speaking here about the Israelis and speaking here about, of course, the Gulf, which I mentioned in my previous comment, it has relied for a long time on American technology. So with this kind of rapprochement, the history of North Korea with Middle East actors, all this is providing the United States with a huge challenge to not only counter Iran's influence and increasing influence with its reliance on possibly North Korea for nuclear power, but also the overall access of the United States and its alliances in the region.
Mm-hmm. Dr. De Silva, Kim Jong-un, a leader who's seen by many analysts as a very strange, isolated leader. In your opinion, why did Kim Jong-un decide to break his isolation and attend event? Does this actually represent or reveal about his intentions regarding the evolving relations between North Korea, China, and Russia as well?
I think the North Koreans are wanting to play a bigger role, and you can see, Kim Jong-un visited the families of soldiers who had fallen in Ukraine, who are fighting on the side of Russia. So, apart from all these clandestine, business that the North Koreans have been doing for a long time, I think it's the trade aspect that is important for them. Their economy, it's very important. They've also opened up for tourists, mainly Chinese and Russians, to come and visit North Korea, and they have new resorts, etc., etc. So I think more than the military side, because that's the kind of alarmist, rhetoric that's coming out in the West and in Washington D.C. I think the North Koreans they're looking across the border at China and seeing the phenomenal expansion of the Chinese economy, and getting I think 25 million people out of abject poverty, which is an amazing story. And we know that there's famine quite often in North Korea. Their economy doesn't do too well, and they would be, in my opinion, wanting to actually strengthen that. And we shouldn't fall into the trap of being alarmist. Oh, the North Koreans, the North Koreans. What we should be worried about is about the START treaty. The START treaty is ending in February, and the Russians have said there will be no new START treaty. This is with regard to conventional missile systems. So this is a huge problem, and those are the strategic things that we need to be looking at.
Okay. Dr. Heleni, are the talks limited to economic cooperation and joint projects, or do they actually pave the way for broader security and military coordination?
For now, these trilateral talks are trying to emphasize connectivity, collaboration, and economic relations.
Mm,
We know with this political theater, which is featuring Putin and Kim, it's very hard to think about only economy, and of course, in the collaboration talks between these parties.
yes,
So there is a very high possibility that this economic collaboration will expand to military cooperation. And this is how things usually work. What starts with economy usually expands to the military. And we know that
develops. Mm,
in infrastructure, collaboration, shared infrastructure, for example, always facilitate troop movement and joint ventures, mask in many times arms transfer.
true.
So this political trust, which is building around commerce, expands will expand in the future, in my opinion, into security coordination. And again, the message is very clear, something that the United States is not the only influence in the region, in the Middle East, and of course the international community. And that is why, of course, here in the United States, they usually refer to this axis as the axis of disruption, obviously trying to disrupt the US influence
Yes,
international level and, of course, regionally wise.
true. Dr. De Silva, how does this meeting represent a step in promoting an alternative world order led by China and Russia away from Western power and dominance?
Yeah, we need to add India to the mix as well.
Yes.
And I think that this is one of the most exciting things that's happening in a long time,
Yes.
with all the kind of negativity since the Trump 2.0 presidency. And every day it has been some mess or the other. And this is one of the most positive things to coming out for analysts to kind of look at. And these are things that are happening in practical terms. And if you look at Chinese involvement in Africa, in South America, and if you also look at the BRICS countries, BRICS is going to do much better with the rapprochement between India and China, because the problem with BRICS was that the Chinese and the Indians were not getting along. Now that they are openly working together, BRICS is going to become a strong counterbalance to the Western alliances of U.S.-led hegemony, NATO, and those things. So I think we need to cast our net wider to see what's actually happening in the world today.
Dr. Heleni, how is China challenging the West's leadership in global politics through its foreign policy actions?
What we see China is doing at this time is trying not only to challenge the US influence, which is possibly in a way doing, but also trying to provide a parallel world order. Many people refer to this as an emerging new world order, actually, in
Mm,
which the United States is not only the dominant power. Thinking about India, for example, we know that India's hedging towards China is one way of showing its frustration to Trump's administration imposing 50% of tariffs on New Delhi, for instance. With China appealing to these powers, to India, to Tehran, those which have been undergoing, if you want, some kind of coercive diplomacy, as many people refer to, by the United States, China is trying to, as I mentioned, provide a new world order, but not through military only perspective, and which Beijing is trying to showcase in this parade, but also through what diplomats refer to as economic statecraft, institutional innovation, and selective, of course, military signaling in that parade, which is happening tomorrow. So there is very much a new world order coming, led by China, encompassing, if you will, these states which are powerful in a way, but at the same time trying to signal a message of frustration with the United States.
mhm.
All in all, this kind of multipolar diplomacy, if you will, through Beijing, Russia, Pyongyang, is very much eventually going to not overturn overnight, of course, the US influence in the world, but try in a way to hollow out, if you will, its power and influence, of course, over time and, of course, on the international level.
Dr. De Silva, how is China using trade, diplomacy, and alliances to shift the global balance of power away from the West?
Yes, we just need to look at the African continent to see the kind of influence China has with regard to Africa and the regular
True. Mm,
contact that African leaders has with Xi Jinping and the Chinese leadership.
mm,
And that is just one example. The Belt and Road Initiative is one of the mechanisms that the Chinese have used to get really entrenched and embedded in Africa, in Central and South America, and also across Asia. So, I mean, if you look at, I mean, you can take a train now from China, a goods train, and end up in Spain or Portugal. So that's the amount of infrastructure development that the Chinese have actually accomplished. They're not
mhm.
talking about it. Always in Washington D.C. There's a lot of talk,
Yes.
but actually, when it comes to you know getting things done,
Yes.
you just have to look at the sorry state of our roads and bridges and airports
Yes.
and ports. It's just nonsense.